This is peg 3 on Jenny's Lake at the famous Whiteacres complex in Cornwall. And 12 months ago on this very spot, Andy Geldart won the contest that every serious match angler in the UK craves to win. The Parkdean Resorts Masters has become the stuff of legend over the past 15 years. It's made and built reputations, fueled dreams and created angling careers which have changed forever. Tomorrow, 24 of the best will be right here, trying to win a competition which will put them through the drama, despair, joy and anguish of competing for £25,000 and, of course, that elusive title. The reason this match is regarded so highly is simple. It's so difficult to get into the final. It comes at the end of a week-long festival held here in Cornwall. It's probably the most competitive week in UK match fishing. This year, 160 anglers have spent the previous 4 days fishing against each other every day for festival points. This is day 5, the last chance for glory. At the end of today's competition, only the top 24 make it through this incredible endurance event and into the Parkdean Resorts Final. Only then do they get the chance to fish for that £25,000 first prize. The festival itself has a £3,000 cash prize for winning 2. On the last day, the favourites were Tom Edwards and James Dent, 2 of match fishing's young guns. But with Tom struggling to catch fish on one lake, next door James was firm favourite as the weigh-in scales arrived. So this is the last match of the festival which precedes the Masters Final, and here we are on Trelawney with James Dent, who was leading the festival, coming into today, and if James has won his section here on Trelawney, he will win the entire festival. And he's got £31.8 to beat so far. And the total for James Dent is £48 and 4 ounces. Will that be enough to win the section here on Trelawney? And here's peg 32. This is Ben Hagg, the only man who can beat James. Oh, he's done it. James is going to be second in section. Ben Hagg, £53.
53.10.
And 10 ounces. So James Dent gets 2 points. 3 section wins already this week and 2 seconds, but that does put him in a very strong position. James's weight was only good enough for second place in a section made up of 8 pegs. He was beaten by Ben Hagg and would have to wait until the evening to see if he was the festival winner. With all the points added and results calculated from 5 previous days, Clint Elliott's about to announce who's in the final. But first, James Dent was given the good news that he had done enough to win the festival after all.
Put your hands together now, James Dent. James Dent, I'm absolutely brilliant this week.
Next, the anglers who've made it into that exclusive 24 are called up onto the stage. This year, the man handing out the envelopes was England international Des Shipp, a 2-time Parkdean winner who's made it into yet another final this year too. So here are the names in this year's final. In total, there are 5 former Parkdean winners. Joining Des are Steve Ringer, Lee Kerry, Andy Leathers and Jamie Wild. The rest of the 24 includes internationals, big money winners and some of the best young talent match angling has to offer. We're all set for an incredible final. So it's the morning of the big match. To decide where everyone fishes, there's a draw to see who gets to sit on which peg on Jenny's Lake. Well, it's the morning of the big match, Coxie. The lineup behind us is incredible, isn't it? I mean, you always seem to get an incredibly strong field for the Parkdean Masters Final, but look at this lot behind us. And what's your view?
Well, what frightens me is the age of these guys. You know, they're like some of the old ones are only 40. but there's a massive amount of young talent in this final. So, you know, there's a lot of lads there they've obviously shown the nerve by getting there, and it'd be interesting to see how they get on.
You mentioned nerve, and that was one of the things that I was going to ask you about. And obviously, you've been in this final quite a lot, and you've won it. What is it like being in that that bubble of the?
Well, you've had all that euphoria through the week, the build up. Am I going to get in the final? Am I going to get in the final? You finally get in the final. It's like, whoa, right, I'm in now. I can think about what I'm doing, and it's fairly. If you've been in the final before, it's quite calming. You know what you're going to be doing, and you know really that if you draw an area, then you have got a very good chance. And that's what we'll talk about tactics a little bit later on and things like that. But it's all about just getting your nerve right, getting prepared, making sure you've got the right bait on the day. Have a walk round in the morning at the lake, see if you can see any fish topping, see any fish moving, and just be prepared.
We've got the draw coming up. We'll talk about the draw as it happens, but that's a big one, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Need to be right on the money today, looking at that lake.
Come on then, James Dent, come and draw your peg, please.
Well, here we go then, Cox, see the draw.
Yeah.
And this man has had an exceptional week.
He's had a great week, and he's won the festival.
Peg 20.
20, yeah, that's towards the bottom end.
Rob Wootton.
If you were pulling pegs out of that bucket today, where would you want to be?
3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 15 and 16.
Not that you've thought about it or
No,
anything.
that's it.
So 23 for Rob.
Yeah, he won't be happy with that.
It does not look happy.
You know, you've got to remember, these lads know these lakes really well. We all know them very well. But fish do swim, they've got fins.
The problem when you're sort of looking at the draw for this match is the big names keep coming, and here's Andy Power, who I should think he's one of the last blokes you want to fish against in these big matches, isn't he?
He can draw and fish. He's absolutely brilliant.
Peg 15.
15, and that is absolutely bang on as well. So he's going to be one of the favourites.
Hey, Lee Carey.
Yeah, Lee's another former winner. Very good. He's been in my section all week, Lee, and he's fished some good matches.
The sections this week have been painful from what I've seen, because the weather's been a little bit moody down here in Cornwall. Peg 12's, what's that? That's round the back as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's going to be difficult there.
He doesn't look happy. Here's Jamie, won it 2 years ago.
Very
He's
confident angler.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if he draws on some carp, he'll win it. Very good.
Peg 21.
I would say that's probably the last peg with the chance.
Okay, John Wincup.
But it's an outsider. He's a man on form. He's already got
Could be 16,
bank balance
couldn't
with 70 grand in this year from the Masters Final. On fire.
Peg 11.
Peg 11.
Been one off that.
Yeah. Well, you know, again, he's in the narrows. He's going to really struggle there. You've got to have fish in that area there, but with all the noise and everything going on, they tend to be in the open areas rather than the narrow necks.
Now, Matt Godfrey is just simply one of the best young anglers in the country, isn't he? I mean, he's in the England setup now. He seems to win an awful lot of matches. Peg 4 is right in the mix from what you're saying.
Great peg is that. That's absolutely brilliant peg. And he can win off there.
There's some good peg numbers still in the bucket, and there's a man waiting to draw in the shape of Mr. Des Ship, who's won this event twice.
And 16 still in the bag.
16 still in the bag. Here he goes.
Yeah.
What's
17.
left the flyer, he
that's
said,
half
walking
decent.
up there.
Yeah.
What's he going to pull out? Watch his little face. Come on, Desmondo.
Peg 6.
Peg 6. He'll be very happy with that.
He will be.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell when Des is happy, isn't it?
No, he'll be happy with that.
Now, Ben Fisk, to me, has been one of those anglers who's kind of been around on the circuit and seems to fish really well on some tough pegs. He's one of those guys that I reckon has got a chance in one of these big matches one day.
He's one of the quickest anglers you'll ever see. Peg 3, that's a good peg 3.
Well, that's the peg Andy Geldart won the match from last year, of course.
Yeah.
Steve Ringer.
Now
Peg
here's
16 still in.
and Steve Ringer.
Yeah, well, Steve's awesome. Absolutely amazing angler. Peg 16. Yeah.
Peg 16, Steve Ringer.
Yeah.
Here's confirmation of the draw then. No question that the 2003 Parkdean champion Steve Ringer's favourite on peg 16. Andy Power's next door on 15 though, and Ben Fisk has drawn peg 3, where Andy Geldart won the match from last year. The anglers fish for just 4 hours in the Parkdean Resorts Final, and we're ready to get underway.
So Matt, peg 4, what do you reckon?
Quite a fancy it, Andy, to be honest. You've got plenty of water to go out, middle of the lake. It's always an area where you've got a chance, so that's all you can hope for in this match.
The water's very flat, you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to need a big wake today, to be honest. I think you need a bit of ripple on this lake. But it's one of the few pegs where you have got a chance off, so you never know.
If it's a low weight final, then it makes it a better final, you know, for most people. If you need, like when Jamie Wild won it a couple of years ago, I think he won it with £47. To me, it's a low weight final, but it makes it a better final because there's a lot more pegs, you know, it brings a lot more pegs into the actual match.
Steve Ringer's on peg 16, favoured areas, but I still think we're in with a good chance here. You just need some carp, and it can be anybody's.
Steve, I don't think I've ever seen you quite so excited to draw a peg. It's peg 16, it's a flyer.
16 should be a flyer. It's the first time in a few years now I've had what I think's a chance in the final. So yeah, when I saw 1 and 6 on the ticket, I was a bit excited, I'll admit.
John, you've had a heck of a year. You've got a healthy bank balance from match fishing.
Yeah, just a bit.
Here you are in the final of the Parkdean Masters. What are your prospects today, do you reckon?
Not very good, I think. On paper, probably one of the worst pegs on the lake. But funny things happen in these big matches. I've got a nice bank to fish to. Got a nice edge to fish to, which a lot of pegs haven't got. So you just don't know.
Well, Coxie, we're underway, and as seems to be our kind of habit in this competition, we seem to have started the match looking at peg 16, and there is Steve Ringer.
Yeah, 2 good reasons, isn't there? Steve Ringer's on it, and there's a few fish moving about. You know, we've wandered up and down the lake, and there's not been masses of fish showing, has there? It's been quite chilly. But just this last 10-15 minutes, it's brightened up, and there's a few more fish showing. There's fish moving about all over in this area, and a bit further down the lake as well, so Steve's got a really good chance today, fantastic chance.
Where you've had your walk up and down and chatted to a few people, I mean, my feeling is that most people feel it's going to be a reasonably low weight match. What's your sort of interpretation of what you've seen so far?
I think you're right, I do, but the trouble is with this place, you never know, do you? You've got lots and lots of F1s and Carrassios, they call them, they're like the silver F1s in here, but you've got a good head of really big fish. Now, one angler only needs to catch 5 or 6 of those big fish, and they've got £50 there. You add £20 or £30 a bit to that, and you've got an £80 weight, which often wins. But if those big fish don't show, then that's when it could be a £50 day.
Well, there's Phil Canning on peg 18, a couple of pegs up from Steve Ringer. In fact, that's the peg when Steve won the match several years ago, when Steve Ringer was Parkdean Masters champion. That was the peg that he fished. And can clearly see that Phil is playing a decent sized carp. Landing net is ready to go in. And the fish splashes a rod length or so from Phil Canning. So important, as Darren was saying a few minutes ago, to land these decent sized bonus fish. He's got it. So that's a decent sized carp of about maybe 5 or 6 pounds. And that is a terrific start for Phil Canning on peg 18 of Jenny's Lake. Well, there's Andy Power on peg 15, Darren.
Just netting a fish, looks like a half decent, this looks like a Carrassio to me, that.
Interesting, isn't it? I mean, he's fishing running line, he's fishing a waggler. We've already seen Phil Canning on peg 18 land 1 carp, and if we just have a little look round at Phil again, there is peg 18.
And he's got another fish on. Phil's chucking tight to the island, which is a long way in his peg, so he's actually fishing water that everybody else can't get to. And that's probably where the fish have backed off. We can't see from this side of the lake, but I'll bet you now there are fish showing round that back of that island. Yeah, that's a good carp, that is. Yeah, it's another 6 or 7, 6 pound fish probably.
Well, there's Steve with the fish on at last, Darren.
Yeah, well, we just seen him bumper fish earlier, and like you say, he changed his hook. He's obviously getting a few signs on his shallow line now. And what was interesting, Andy, was he hooked that fish, shipped back, and his pole tip just went in the water, and he spooked another fish as well. So there's obviously a few fish loitering over his feed now, which is really great news for him, because what I would say is he's feeding it really well. And he's obviously confident that he's going to draw some fish into that area, and everybody else around him is fishing much further out. Now if the fish come onto Steve Ringer's feed line, look, he's playing fish and he's feeding at the same time. Oh, he's lost it. Oh.
Well, what's going on there?
Don't know. There may be Carasio, maybe, you know, he's using, it looks like he's using white hydro, which is a fairly soft elastic, great for small fish and great for big fish, but it might be that it was a Carasio. They're very hard mouthed Carasios, and you do lose a lot of them. They're different fish to F1s.
Wasn't it interesting? Back on peg 18, and once again, Phil Canning fishing the waggler, and he's playing another carp. This is extraordinary.
Yeah, it looks good fish as well. And I'll tell you what's interesting, he's getting lots of indications, because he struck 2 or 3 times before he's hooked that fish. So there's fish over his feed.
On that account, that's the 4th or 5th fish he's had, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And more importantly, it's a 3rd good fish, isn't it? When you're talking about £50 to win, in the first 35 minutes, he's probably 30% of the way there. You know, he's won some good matches already. Well, that's £6, £5, big fish.
While Phil was playing that fish, we saw Steve Ringer make a change, and there he is landing a fish. I think it's only a small Carasio, but
yeah, it was. But he's gone deep, hasn't he? I think he's just gone deep, and because I saw him put some in his pot and go out, and he's fished 15-20 minutes that we know of, shallow, and not had a response. But he's obviously seen people fishing the waggler. Phil's fishing very shallow, so Steve's thinking, well, my chances of catching at the moment must be shallow.
one of the interesting things about this lake is the way that the fish respond to feed. And yesterday I had a chat with James Dent, the lad that won the festival, of course. Worm and caster and natural bait seems to work really well in here, but there are some very specific ways that you feed it to get the best out of it. And James showed me the way that he does it, which was absolutely fascinating. Really interesting method this, James, so just tell us how you do it.
Right, well I start by getting me bag of worms and placing them on the riddle with all the peat still left on. And then I shake the peat through the riddle, leaving all the worms and the bigger lumps on top. This is the peat that's left under the riddle after you've riddled the worms and left them on top. And this is probably one of the most important parts to the ingredients to the mix. I'm left with the peat in one tub, and then I've got the worms, neat worms. I take a pot and some worms and I place them in the pot. And I like to not cut them too fine, because I think a big carp and that you want quite big pieces of bait. So I only give them two or three crunches with the scissors, and it leaves it sort of quite big and lumpy. And when you're potting the bait in it, there's similar sort of size things to what's on your hook. So I take the worms after I've chopped them a couple of times and place them in the tub. Some people don't put casters in, but I like to put a few casters in just in case you start loose feeding them over the top or something like that. Some casters as well. And then the peat that you've got from the worms that you've riddled off, place this with the worms and casters, give them a mix around. And then this is too dry to pot in. So take some water off the casters. You can see that it goes instantly wet, horrible and gooey. Not a clean job. There's a few bigger worms in there. I probably would have liked them not as big, but you get the general feeling. So you can see that it's much more stodgy and horrible now. We want it to cloud, so it needs to be quite damp. So that is my mix. that's it, probably just about right now.
The thing I really like about this method is that it does two jobs. It's a mix that you can use to bring fish up in the water, but it's also something you can use to fish on the deck, isn't it? So how does that work in practice?
When I'm fishing, I introduce it through this pole pot. If I'm going to fish on the bottom, I leave it stodgy and just place it in, just into the top of the pot, and ship out obviously to where you're fishing. And if I'm fishing on the bottom, I like to just sort of gently place it into the water. On the other hand, if there's a lot of fish coming into my peg and I'm getting liners and missed bites and stuff like that, obviously the fish might be coming shallow. So still just place it into my pot. But the difference is, when I introduce it, I don't introduce it dead low to the water, I introduce it high to the water. And then it makes the cloud when it hits the water.
So once you've introduced either the bottom feed or the cloud mix, what then goes on the hook?
I normally fish with a piece of worm, similar size to how I chopped it up when I chopped the mix up. And I just hook it straight through the head and nip it off. There's a saddle, just nip it off below the saddle. So it's a big fat piece of worm. When we slap it on the water, it makes a bit of a splash, and it's similar to what's in your feed, and carp seem to love it.
Clearly there are fish moving around in this area, because there's peg 19, that's Martin Holmes, right next door to Phil Canning, and that also looks like a decent fish. He's fishing the pole though, Darren.
He is, yeah. Yeah, it looks like he's on the deck as well, but that looks like a big fish. But, you know, I can't believe how many fish are moving now in this area compared to an hour ago.
Is that a response to feeding, or is that a change in the weather? I mean, nothing seems to have changed from our perspective, but the fish can obviously sense little changes in pressure and things like that.
Yeah, I think it has warmed up just that little bit. You know, like a midday sun up in the sky it's not warm, but it's warmed it up enough for the fish to realise. But I think what you may find is that when the anglers feed, the fish sort of, if they're not feeding, they automatically push away from where the feed is rather than coming to the feed. And somebody like Phil Canning, who's fishing miles out the way of everybody else, yes, he is feeding a bit, but those fish pushing out away from all the pole tips has probably amalgamated enough fish in one area for him to pick a few off. And he, like you say, he's had a dream start.
We're hearing down at the other end of of Jenny's where the other anglers are fishing, so the likes of Ben Fisk, Matt Godfrey, Lee Edwards, Des Ship on pegs 3, 4, 5 and 6, that they're picking up fish. But the thing is, we see Martin is playing a fish on peg 19, but also there's Phil Canning in again.
Yeah, amazing start. And it's nice fishing as well, because he's got it all to himself. And there's another fish there. It's not a huge fish, but it's another pound or so going in his net and steady away. You know, we're 45 minutes in and we're talking about him having well over 25 pound.
Well, let's have another look at Martin Holmes now, who's still playing this fish. Probably fairly hooked by the way he's playing it. That's probably one of these big Jenny's lumps, isn't it? I mean, there's some big old fish in here.
Yeah, there is. He's close to netting it now. So, yeah, it's a nice fish. It's a good fish. That's interesting because, you know, that's the first proper fish we've seen caught on a pole other than Steve Ringer.
Completely different end of the lake. There's Ben Fisk on peg 3, which of course is the peg that won the match last year, doing something very differently, and he's got to be a contender.
Well, Ben's doing what he does. He's doing what he does best. He's those who know him know how good he is at shallow fishing. He's so quick, but he's very, very accurate with his feeding. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he's, you know, we've just wandered down here and we've seen him catch 3 or 4 of these carassios. They don't look really big, but they're like lead. And you keep putting a pound in your net, a pound in your net, every chuck. You know, you're whittling away at a 6 pound mirror carp in 10 minutes.
Well, right next door to Ben Fisk, and there's Matt Godfrey. He's just struck at a bite, and look at his pole.
Yeah, it's looks like a good fish, that, doesn't it? He's fishing a different match to Ben. I think he's tried to catch shallow. I'm not sure whether he's shallow or not at the moment on that rig, but it looks like a better fish.
And I suppose the thing with this is, we're watching Ben Fisk, and he is hooking fish, he is kind of building a weight gradually. But you were saying a few minutes ago, you'd want to see fish coming in a bit faster. The issue we've got here is that if Matt Godfrey can catch 2 or 3 fish like this, it cancels out half an hour's work from Ben, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's, you know, you can only fish and catch what's in your peg. But if you are on these Carasio, you need to catch them quickly. And there's been a lot of anglers who've come second on this match fishing for Carasio because they can't quite just get that full weight of fish. You know, years ago when likes of Grant Albert won it off this bank, you know, fishing for 70 or 80 pound of Carasio when they had really good days. So that's good fish there. That was a deck fish. You can see he's got a long rig on there, and that's a mirror. Couple of pound, but he'll be pleased with that because, you know, that'll now tell him that there's the stamp of fish that he wants to catch is over his feed, so it'll give him a bit more confidence there.
There's Mikey Williams on peg 10. That's a huge carp. Here's Ben with another fish, Darren. He's changed his top kit, different coloured elastic. What's the significance of that?
I don't honestly know. I don't know whether he's playing it delicately. He might have just gone down a grade of elastic. He might have put a smaller hook on. And often when you fish with these F1s with a small hook, you need a light elastic. It is a Carasio again, I think, by the looks of it. But he wasn't, you know, the sun's come out and he seemed to stop getting bites, didn't he? So he's tried to change something.
Don't change everything, just change something.
Yeah, it's the same, you know, you either change your rig or you change feeding, but you don't do both at the same time, otherwise you'll never know what works. Well, Mikey Williams has just netted that fish, and again that looks like a nice fish. Thought it was foul hook, but it's not. He's just taken a hook out of his mouth, and that is a really good fish. So that will put him well back in contention. I've got him down for about £20 now. There aren't many people who've got £20 at the moment.
Straight across on peg 6, there's Des Ship. Things are starting to happen in this match. You can see Des's top kit is in the air, green elastic streaming from the tip, and he's starting to catch a few fish. There is no one more dangerous on this match than Des Ship, and if the fish start to feed, he will certainly be a contender. We hear he's probably got about £20 at the moment, and we're starting to hear that 1 or 2 other things are happening elsewhere on the length. So if Des lands this fish, he's probably going to have mid-20s. We think Phil Canning's got just over £30, and at this stage it's all a guesstimate. That's match fishing for you. But we're also hearing that John Whincup, who's on peg 11, a peg that nobody would have fancied in a million years in this match, has also catching fish and has got about £30. We think Mikey Williams, who's on peg 10, who we saw earlier on catch that huge carp, has got 2 others like it for about £30. So we could be in a situation here where we're about to see one of the tightest finals of Parkdean Masters we've ever seen. And there's Des. In goes the landing net. And look at that. Well, that's £7 or £8 easily, maybe even a little bit bigger. And if Des has got 20 already and that's £7 or £8, that puts him right in the box seat. We're just looking through the trees there at John Whincup on peg 11, and he's a man on the charge, Darren.
Yeah, he's been the dark horse. We can't see him, can we, generally? So we had to stand at an angle. But I just saw him catch 4 fish in a row about half an hour ago. I thought, I wonder if he's catching. Then Steve Martin, who's over there, just let us know that he's had £32. So he's obviously been sneaking them in. He can reach the islands. The only one in the complex that can actually reach the island at 16 metres there. So he's using that far bank. And there's obviously a few fish just milling about and going through there. The peg next to him, Mikey Williams, had 3 big fish. So there's some fish around there. But, he's playing fish now. And it looks like a good fish, to be honest.
He's just had a scoop at it and missed it, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, and you know, he's had. Somebody just said he had a good fish, like 6 or 7 pound, and this looks like it's a common or a mirror again. You know, if he's got 32 pound now and he's still catching, he can easily win this, easily.
I mean, we're looking around what we've got in front of us. We're past the 2 hour stage, so we've probably got about an hour and a half left. We've got Phil Cannings, who's got 35-ish. We've potentially got John Winkup, who's got 32, 33, 34 pound. We've got Mikey Williams on peg 10 right next door, who's got 30 odd pound. We've seen Des Ship land a big carp. He had 20. He's possibly on 28. We know that Ben Fisk on peg 3 has also got about 30 pound. This is going to be close.
Oh, it's really close, isn't it? Very, very close. And it'll be down to those that have that good last hour. Somebody like John, who, you know, he's ticking away and ticking away. He's catching small fish and good fish, which means that he's potentially got a really good chance of getting a big weight.
And he's also an angler in form. I mean, we know he won the Maver match this, £70,000 in the bank.
Look at that.
Look at that, it's huge.
That's a big fish. That's another 6 or 7 pound fish. You know, you're talking 40 pounds plus he's got now, because as we were walking down, when we had a text saying he's got 32 pound, one of the lads had just said he'd had 2 fish since then, plus that one. So he's my leader at the moment.
Well, Darren, we've just had a message from the other side of the lake that John Winkup is approaching 50 pounds. He's just fizzed his pole back through his fingers really, really quickly to try and pull the fish away from the snag. He's got another fish on.
Yeah, unbelievable. The peg nobody wanted, peg 11, tucked away, and we've just seen him land a fish 6 or 7 pound at least, and he's gone straight back out and got another one. That really, really looks good for him, doesn't it?
Do you know who I feel the most sorry for? Is Lee Kerry in the peg next door.
Yeah, Lee's 10 metres away, but it might as well be 10 miles away, because you can't reach with a pole there. If the fish are up in the water, there's no way that Lee will be able to catch them.
We see John taking his time over there. I mean, do you think he'll realise the significance of what's happening? He'll have an idea of what's going on around him, won't he?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Steve Martin's over on that bank, so when Steve Martin is asking what he's caught and what weight he's got, you know, most of the anglers will be saying how's that faring and who's catching what. So he'll have an idea, and even if he doesn't, with 47 pound in his net, he will know that he's in the pound seats and he's in with a really good chance.
You can just see him shortening his elastic. I mean, I suppose the difficult bit for John is when he hooks those fish, because looking over at that peg, if you look over at the far bank of where he's fishing, it's ever so snaggy over there. There's loads of bushes and we don't know what's under the water, but the reason he's shipping his pole back quickly is to get that fish away from the trouble as fast as he can. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you know, when you hook them, they can only guide or kite left and right. And I saw him, he actually shipped right back, and the fish is all obviously kited to his right, and he's had to put more sections on. But that's where they are, so you've got to fish, we've got to go to the lion's den to catch lions. That peg has won it once before. Neil Machin was on that peg years ago, and he won it with a good weight, and he caught mirror carp. But ever since, it's just not thrown up that peg. But it's such an amazing lake, this. We all came down this morning saying it's going to be woeful, and it's probably been one of the most exciting matches to watch, because you just don't know who's going to win.
But there's an interesting sort of connection with Neil Machin, because you talk about Neil winning it years ago. Well, that's of course the year that Neil Machin also won the Fishermania. So he won 25,000 in Fishermania and then came down here and won 25 grand. Well, of course, John won the Maver match this, 70 grand. If he's heading for victory here, what a phenomenal double that would be.
It's not a bad day at the office, is it?
No.
You know, best part of 100 grand. It's a nice year, isn't it?
We've just seen that fish top for the first time. Nervous moments when their heads come up, Coxie.
Yeah, it's that, you know, you're shipping back and you're stripping that elastic back, and you're taking all that stretch out of the elastic, and just one false move and bump, you either pull the hook out or break the line. But John's really on form at the moment. I mean, okay, that's another good fish.
He's got it. Same size as the last one, that's 7 or 8 surely.
Yeah, I've got that down for about £7, I would say. Good fish.
So he's mid-50s then, if he's admitting to 47. that's £55. He's going to be winning the match at the moment. Well, Coxie, it's 10 to 3. We're approaching kind of 0 hour, the magic last hour in this match. We're at the very top end of the match length, right by the end peg where Rob Wootton is struggling a little bit. Next door, we've got Sam Powell, who's got 3 fish for about £25. But if you look at this end of the lake, it's so very different, isn't it? It's ever so shallow up here.
It's difficult to say that you can actually win from this end, in all honesty.
Which is a shame when you've worked your way through such a difficult festival all week. But I mean, that is match fishing. That's the way the sport works, isn't it? There's no point in, being annoyed about it. You've just got to hope that eventually these things even themselves out. When you've been through these spells where kind of everything you touch it works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What's it like?
Well, it's fantastic, but you catch 10 to 15% more fish when you've got confidence. At the end of the match, the last hour you're catching the majority of your weight because the big fish coming down the edge. All these fish we've seen today, mooching around, backing off the feed, they don't really want to feed through the day. But as the day wears on, they start to come closer and closer into the bank because they know that the bait's going to be there, and they start looking. They find, people put a carpet of ground bait down, the fish come in, and the first one you see, it sees the ground bait, spooks and goes back out, but it's clocked it. It knows the feed's there, and it'll come back, and others come back. And if you can get more than 1 or 2 fish over that ground bait, if you can get 4 or 5 of those big fish competing when they start shoulder barging each other over that ground bait, that's when you can catch a big weight.
Well, Darren, we're in the last couple of minutes and we're looking at the man we think has probably run away with this match, John Wincup. He's had a stellar year. The thing that I'm interested in with this is, we see the same guys in the final year on year on year on year, and people talk about luck in fishing, but it's not luck.
No, it's not luck at all. It's about averages. We all draw bad pegs, we all draw good pegs. Some people will say that others draw better pegs than them. There are people that are slightly luckier, but these people like John Wincup, he's absolutely top of his game. He wins everywhere because he's completely and totally switched on with what he's doing, and he deserves it.
Explain to me about form in fishing then, because how does that work? How do you get yourself, we see a footballer who's playing well, we see a cricketer who's scoring runs or taking wickets, a golfer who's winning tournaments, but in fishing, where's the form come from?
It's about being tuned in. It's like finding the right radio station. You've got when you're fishing for roach, when you're fishing for carp, when you're fishing bream, whatever you're fishing for, it's about understanding how to catch them, how are they feeding, how are they reacting to certain feed, what's the right bait. The temperature's dropped this morning, the fish are going to drop into the deeper water. Anglers are on form, they switch quickly. That to me is what it's all about.
And there's nobody more in tune than John Wincup, that's for certain.
No, he's just man on form. But the thing about John Wincup, he's been about for a lot of years. He's fished, fished for Essex when Essex were the team to beat. He fished bloodworm, he fished rivers, and he's done everything. And he's a real top angler at all fishing. He has been for a long time, and he's dedicated his fishing now to individually fishing for carp on commercials. And it's devastating. You can see how good he is. And they always say the more fish you catch, the better you get. When you're on form, you catch more fish. When you draw decent pegs, you catch more fish. And the confidence breeds confidence, and it tunes you in more and more. And you actually believe you're going to catch fish. Nobody gave him a prayer off that peg today, including me. I thought, nah, honestly, John, you're going to struggle today. But he went to. I spoke to him before the match, and he didn't fancy it. What he thought was, he said his words were, that's time, that's all out. He said, I've got a peg here that is different to everybody else's. So I've got a slight advantage in that respect that I can reach the island. So he said, I'm going to use that advantage. That's what he's done.
Fantastic, isn't it? That's one of the best things about this match. We can see the anglers coming in to congratulate him because I think they know what's happening. Lee Kerry, one of the first to him.
It's brilliant.
The match is all over. The only way we're going to settle it is when the scales come round, but I fancy we know who is the new Parkdean Resorts champion.
Yeah, yeah, his name's on it already.
So Coxie, this is the peg no one wanted, peg 11, and this is John Winkup wetting his whistle.
Do you know, I'm sick of seeing him weigh loads of fishing.
I don't think you're alone.
No, he's fished a brilliant match, absolutely brilliant match today, and he really has. So I think he's going to reap the rewards. Yeah, some lovely big fish there as well, some proper stamp fish. Look at them. Those ones that we said, oh, that must be £6, they were £8, weren't they?
Yeah.
They're a long way off.
He's as cool as a cucumber, look. He's not bothered.
That's why he wins. He's got the temperament to do it.
So that's John's first net, £44.7. He's got another one to go. That's already taking the lead on its
Absolutely.
own. So half his catch has beaten Phil Canning's in the higher numbers.
Yeah, incredible. And you know, he'll have the same in the other net for sure.
There we go.
There's more in that net.
There's more in that net. You're right. There's £50 in there, isn't there? Oh, I don't know.
About the same. About the same. I think probably a good split, that I would say. 45, 48, 45.
Let's just go and grab that total. There's a round of applause, and the total for John Winkup on peg 11, an incredible £92 and 14 ounces. What a fantastic performance. I know it's not confirmed yet, but I think we know.
I think so, yeah. I don't think there's been a lot caught down there, but yeah, I think I've done it.
I mean, how are you feeling at the moment, John?
Madness. The run continues. My throat's gone, I can't talk hardly. It's mad. What a mad few weeks. Mad year.
Why is that? What's happened? What's pushing? I mean, Darren's been saying about this isn't luck. You've had some good draws, of course you have, but you can't just win matches on good draws alone.
I don't know, to be honest. I've always put a lot of time and effort into fishing, and I suppose the last 2 years I've made it my focus to target these big matches, the festivals, the Maver, the Fish Show, and I suppose I've really given it a good go, put me all into it, and it's just paying off big time.
And this is one of the ones that everybody wants to win, not just because of the big cash prize, but who you've had to beat to get here. I mean, look around you.
Oh, no, it's mad, unbelievable. I said this morning the field's awesome. All the young lads fishing nowadays, there's loads of them that are brilliant anglers, and give them half a peg, you can't beat them. It must be the youngest lineup ever, I think. I'm one of the oldest here at 42, and I don't think I'm that old, but I feel like an old one here today.
Well, this is Ben Fisk on peg 3, the peg that won the match last year. And Coxie, he's got a good number of fish, but it's not going to be anywhere near, is it?
No, I mean, Ben's worked hard. He's caught what's in his peg. He's fished for F1s, and then those big carp haven't been down here. Can't give up. He's got to work hard, and Ben's fished a really good match. We watched him, haven't we?
I'd like to see his fish count, actually. I mean, we don't do that in these matches, but I bet his fish count is above everybody else on the lake.
Oh yeah, he'll have miles more fish than everybody else.
47.5.
So Ben Fisk's total from peg 3, £47 5 ounces. That will be good enough for second place. John Winkup is the Parkdean Resorts champion.
The winner of the 2016 Parkdean Resorts Masters, winner takes all, picking up a cheque for £25,000, fishing off the most unpopular peg on Jenny's, peg 11, with a fantastic weight of £92 14 ounces, is John Winkup. Well done, big man. Trophy first.